What's up, everyone? Well, today I'm out at the farm and I thought I'd share a little bit about what I do when things go wrong with root over rock compositions that I've created maybe a year or two prior. All right, so basically what's going on here is that the rock here should have a root on this side, and there was a root right here, but that died. And so I was looking at this a few minutes ago and realized that what I'm going to have to do is take it out of the container and reorient one of these roots, because right now it's not actually gripping the rock very well. It's sort of pushing the rock that way rather than actually gripping it completely. So if I want these roots to start to deform around the rock and make it look like it's really gripping, I'm going to need to do something about that. This root's a little bit redundant, so I'll probably ultimately cut that off, but for right now I'm going to leave it because I'm going to be doing enough root work here to kind of slow the tree down. And because it's kind of mid-spring, at least according to what the tree thinks, I don't want to do any more root work than what I absolutely have to do. So what I'm looking at is that there's a root that goes from here underneath this large root and kind of behind it, and then coming out over here. So I'm going to see if I can free up that root and then pull it back over that direction, both to get this root closer to the rock and to make it so that this one kind of grips the other side so that the rock can't move. All right, so that root wrapped, kind of splits in two here and then was wrapping underneath. So I pulled it out, leaving as many of the fine roots intact as I possibly can. And now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to see if I can pull it through that direction. So I'm going to take the rock out temporarily since it's already loose. The danger of keep taking the rock out is basically that you forget how it goes in, or something else changes while you have it out. Now, if I wasn't trying to do this, my only other option is to cut that root off because it's pushing this big root out. But I think I'm going to be successful here. So the next thing I need to do is make a little bit of space here so that the root has somewhere to go, and then I'll put the rock back in there. All right, so now that I have the root out on this side, I'm going to I've used raffia rope in the past, but for the same purpose today, I'm actually going to use leftover drip irrigation tubing, because that's what I have on hand here at the farm. I didn't bring the raffia rope. Now, as I do this, I'm trying to minimize any gaps that I've created. So there's a gap here, but it's not terribly large, and I might come over the top to try to press it together. About a foot away from the edge of that, or the end of the hose, I cut like half of the side off and stuck a wire through it so I could use that to tie off the end easily. Now, because there's so many wraps of the hose on there, it's a little bit hard to see, but basically this is the root that I moved. It starts here and basically goes down. I think the front of the composition ultimately will probably be on this side. And so I also moved the tree a little bit compared to the rock just to get it to snug up on both sides. I'll rely on the expansion of the wood here to close up these gaps. All right, with that, the orientation has changed a little bit, and basically I just reused the soil that fell out from between the roots when I was taking the root out to move it, and I just added that back and chopped it back in between the roots. I'm going to add a little bit of soil on the top and then water it, make sure that it doesn't dry out for a few days. And even though I didn't cut any roots, any fine roots, there's definitely going to be a significant amount of damage to the roots just based on the chopping of the soil and manipulation and whatnot. So I would expect that these spring candles this late after repotting season for me might droop a little bit, but then I would expect them to recover within a few days as the roots start to grow again in their new orientations. There's basically two techniques that I use to modify root over rock compositions. One is moving roots like I just did, and the other is cutting roots off. For the time being, I'm not going to remove any of these roots. I'm just going to let this grow on for another year and see how it bulks up and see what the result is, whether or not it gets a firm grip on the rock so that I can stop having to think about reorienting roots. Here's a similar tree that I did the same operation to 6 months, I think it was sometime last summer, so 6 months to 9 months ago. And as I take this tubing back off, it's kind of done what I wanted it to do, which is to push in these sections to make them kind of hug the rock. And you can see that there's no airspace between this root and the rock here, which is exactly what we're looking for. And as I go around it, I've got good attachment on this side as well. And the only thing I would say is that unfortunately this root coming back this direction doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me in terms of the aesthetics of the tree. So I'm going to see if I can pull one or both of these two things out and reorient them down this direction. All right, so I managed to get those two out, but I don't want to do too much more excavating in here because it's not the right time of year really to be doing this. While I'm in here, I'm looking at kind of where the roots are coming and going and eliminating roots that look like they're not going to be useful in the long-term composition, especially stuff that's coming down and going straight out would prevent it from easily being put into a small pot. So now in order to reorient these over here, I'm just going to excavate out some soil here, which probably won't have much in the way of roots in it. All right, and now I'm going to wrap it back up, trying to use that tubing to get those roots to stay in place and really grip the rock on this side. All right, so a combination of the wire that was already on here and the tubing that was already on here, and that allowed me to reorient these two roots from hooking a hard turn to more logically going down the other sides of the rock. So I'll just go ahead and put this back in the basket and add the soil back and put it back out to grow. Thanks everyone, hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you next time.